Hey guys, RJ Ronquillo here. Welcome back to the channel. Now, you guys know that most of my gear demos, I never talk in them, but I thought it was important that I kind of talk a little bit about this piece of gear because there's a lot of cool things happening here. So this is the MultiCab Mark III by Tsakalis. And this is kind of like a Swiss Army knife of sorts. At its core, it's a feature-laden mic'd speaker cab simulator. And there's multiple ways you can use this. You can use this at the end of your pedal board to simulate the sound of going right into an amp and send that maybe directly to the mixing board or front of house or your recording software. You can use it as an amp DI between your amp and your cabinet. So if you're on a gig or a recording session, you don't have to mic a cabinet. You can actually take a direct out of here into the mixing board. As well, if you want to practice silently at home, there's a headphone jack. And I want to show you guys a couple ways that I would use this in my setups and kind of go through all the different tones and all the different settings. So I have the MultiCab plugged in directly into my audio interface using the XLR. I also placed an overdrive in front of it just so I can test out some kind of distorted tones, try to get some amp-like distortion out of this. On the input, you actually have a level 3-position level control. So you've got 0, you've got -24, and you got +24. So you can use this with like really hot pickups, like active pickups possibly. Maybe keyboards if you want. I'm actually plugged in and I've got it on +12 just so I can get the volume that I need. Now going through the signal path, you'll see, we'll start on the right side on the bottom. This whole bottom area is going to be all analog signal path. Now the MultiCab for the most part is a speaker simulator DI box. But on the MultiCab, these two switches kind of control amp-like qualities. So you'll see on this preamp switch, you've got off, clean, and hot. And you also have a tone control, so it can go from dark to brighter. And then this is kind of the power section of your amp. So you can either have it off, or you can choose the EL34 style power section, which is going to be like your Marshall style. Or you can choose the 6L6 power section, which is going to be more of a Fendery style. So we'll play through those in a little bit. Now next we have the cabinet miking section, if you will. These two switches select the type of cabinet in regards to the back. If it's a closed back cabinet, semi-closed, semi-open back in the middle here, or totally open back cabinet. And I'm assuming we're going to be hearing differences in the bass response. And that's usually the case with the real versions of the cabinets. And next we have the miking style. So you'll see that we have dynamic, which is going to be more like your Shure SM57. And then you have the ribbon mic, which is going to be like a Royer 121. And you know, a lot of times, and I know Tim Pierce talks about this, the dynamic gives you that mid-range punch, and the ribbon gives you the fullness around it. So when you select the both option, that gives you a blend of both the dynamic and ribbon, which is a very common miking technique when you're miking guitar amps. So you're getting the best of both worlds. Now moving on to the top section, whereas the bottom section was the all analog signal path, now we're getting into the digital modeling section. So starting with the big elephant in the room, the big knob in the middle. This is the rotary dial that selects the different guitar cabinets that are included in the MultiCab. So starting on the left, we have a 110 cabinet model, which is supposed to be inspired by a 62 Fender Princeton with a 10-inch Oxford speaker. Next, we have a 410, which is inspired by a 66 Super Reverb amp with 10-inch Jensens, which I have back there. Next, we have a 112. We've got a couple 112 models. We've got the first one, which is a 65 Fender Deluxe Reverb with 12-inch Oxford speakers. Sorry. Next, we have another 112, which is inspired by the Zilla Fat Baby closed back cabinet loaded with 12-inch Celestion Vintage 30 speakers, which I'm assuming is going to be a more modernized 112. Next, we have two models of 212 cabinets. The first one being a 1966 Vox AC30 JMI with 12-inch Celestion Silver Bulldogs. And then the second 212 cabinet is inspired by a Marshall 1936 cabinet loaded with two 12-inch Celestion G12T75s. And then the last on the dial, we've got two 412 cabinets. The first one being a Marshall 1960 AX angled cabinet loaded with four 12-inch Celestion G12H30 greenbacks. And then for a more modern 412, they give you a Mesa Boogie rectifier cabinet with 12-inch Celestion Vintage 30 speakers. So they're giving you a nice blend of vintage and modern cabinet models. On the right side, we have this ambience knob, which is exactly what you would think. It models the cabinet being in a room. So you're going to be hearing a little bit of air and some room sound. According to the manual, up to noon will give you a nice kind of natural room style sound. And then past noon, it turns more into like a small reverb effect. You got your volume knob to control the master volume going out. And you've got a couple options of going out of the box. Right now I'm taking the DI XLR out. There's a ground lift switch if you encounter any noise. You've got a normal line out, so if you want to put this on your pedal board and use it like a pedal at the end of your pedal chain, you can do that as well. If you're practicing at home and you want to do it silently, there's a nice headphone jack, as well as an aux in, which is pretty cool. If you want to plug in, you know, like your phone or your iPad and jam to tracks, you can. And there's also, on the other side, there is a through-out, which I believe if you want to plug this in between your amp head and your speaker cabinet, you would use that jack. So I'm going to run through a bunch of these sounds and settings. I'm going to try to not talk too much. I'm going to try it clean, but I'm also going to try it with the 6 overdrive pedal to get some nice overdriven distorted tones and test it out as well. So here we go. Right now I'm set at the 110 cabinet, dynamic mic, so it's just like a 57, closed back, which I'll switch all of these and play around with them. Right now the amp modeling, power, and preamp section I have off, but I'll turn those on and test it out as well. So with the power switch, I can definitely hear the difference, kind of like in the EQ curve. The EL34 has this kind of scoop in the mid-range, whereas the 6L6, I believe, has a low-mid kind of bump, which is kind of very Fendery to me. And ideally, you would kind of want to set this up as if it were like a real amp. So, not to get ahead, but let's get ahead. So if I wanted to set it up like a Marshall, I might go to the hot on the pre EL34s, closed back cabinet, since we're dealing with a 412. So let's switch it over to like a Marshall 412, which is that one. Let's play around with the mics. So that's just the dynamic. That's just the 57. That's nice. That's how I would probably mic my amp. The ribbon. So you can tell that it's kind of fuller, but you're missing the attack, which the dynamic gets. So I'll put both of them on. You have kind of both of them together, the fullness and the mid-range punch. turn the volume down just a tad because I want to switch on the overdrive and try to get like a Marshall-y, Hendrixy thing. That's kind of like my clean amp. I kind of like it with the dynamic on by itself. So that's pretty cool, considering I'm just going straight into a pedal, into the multicab, directly into my sound card, into my audio interface. This is acting like an amp modeling thing. So I have a little bit of a basic amp here, if you will. Got a little tone control. And then I've got like all the elements of miking a cabinet. Let's play around with the backings of the cab. So that's closed back, like a typical Marshall 412. So the closed back is obviously going to be a little more punchy because naturally that's how it would react if you closed the back of a cabinet. It would be more direct and more punchy. So the more you go open, it almost softens up a little bit. Like the closed back is very in your face, which is perfect for this Marshall-y thing. But if I want to go to the Fender side, let's pick like a super reverb thing. So I'll go to the 410. So I want to model like a super reverb amp. Typically I would have it set clean-ish. The power section would definitely be 6L6. Let's start with the open back cab. And then we'll stick with the dynamic mic a little bit. And here's how it sounds. See, already there, between those two settings, the first one I kind of was going for a Hendrixy thing. Now this one, it's making me feel Stevie Ray Vaughan-ish. So here's how it sounds when you turn off the amp modeling type stuff. So you hear how it kind of gives you that extra fullness and amp-like response. I think if you were using your amp in front of it, or maybe an amp in a box type pedal, you could switch these off. But it's cool that they have this included just in case you want to go straight from your pedals into something that will give you that amp-like response. So let me just go through the dial and just play through all the different cabs with these settings. Turn down the gain just a little bit so it's a little bit cleaner. So I want to try this with a heavier distorted sound. So I've got a Rev G3 pedal plugged into the front. The multi-cab I have set to the last 412 cabinet, which is the Mesa Boogie style cab. Both mics on, closed back cabinet, power section EL34, and I have the pre-section just set to clean. No ambience. Let's see if this gets that chunky chunks. That's very cool. I'm gonna play around with some of the settings. So another way that you can hook up the multicab is with your real amp. So the way I have it wired up right now is I'm going through my 100 watt Sur PT100 speaker out into the input of the multicab here. Now you want to make sure that you use your real amps with a speaker or load box. The multicab is not a load box. It doesn't have that type of technology. It's strictly like a DI cab simulation. So you want to make sure that you don't blow up your amp. You want to make sure you still have some sort of speaker cabinet connected or a load box. Right now I'm going through my torpedo as well. So it's amp into the multicab. Multicab is taking the DI out into one channel of my audio interface, and then the through out, like I said before, you have to plug it into a speaker cabinet. I'm going through my recording device, which is a 2-notes torpedo, so that's a load box as well as another speaker sim. So I'm actually recording multiple tracks. I've got one track of the multicab sound and then another track of my typical recording setup with my 2-notes, so we can compare. So I have the multicab set to the Marshall 412, both mics on, closed cabinet. Since I'm using my own amp with its own preamp and power section, I have the power and pre turned off, and here's how it sounds. So I'll play a little bit and I'll flip between my normal sound with the 2-notes speaker and the multicab sound, and so you can hear the difference. I'm going to switch to the next 412 cabinet. That's the more modern Mesa Boogie style. Just for shits and giggles, let's put on the power section to see if it makes a difference. I like it. So when you have a real amp plugged in, the pre-switch actually makes it sound a little bit softer. So I would keep it off, but I kind of like the power section on the EL34. All right, let's get a little bit of a clean sound going. Let's try a 110. Alright guys, I hope you enjoyed this video. Again, this is the MultiCab Mark III by Tsakalis. Any information that I have, I'll put down in the description below. If you like this gear demo, click that thumbs up. If you like me talking more in my gear demos, let me know down in the comments. If you'd like to see more videos like this, guitar lessons and kind of tone tips and tutorials, make sure you click the subscribe button. Thanks again for watching. I'm RJ Ronquillo, and I'll see you in the next video.